It's 47 minutes after 7 here on the AM show. My guest is Chief Superintendent Owusu Treme. She is in charge. She's the Director of DOVVSU. Today, it's a one-on-one with her. She's new to this particular office, but not entirely new to DOVVSU. So we'll discover a lot of things in this conversation. You've got to stay. Last year, in particular in 2017, we reported on a lot of rape cases. Remember Maxwell Agba's report from Asin Adadientem, and then there was also Asin proper, where there was a 19-year-old who had been raped and hanged. During the festivities, we heard about a 4-year-old around Nungwa who had also been raped. Towards the end of the year last year, it was quite popular. There was a foreigner at the center of some rape allegations around East Legon. Remember that incident? That was also very much talked about, but we know there have been several cases around the country. So we'll find out a lot more in this conversation. Chief Superintendent Owusu Treme, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Congratulations to you with this position.
Thank you.
Yeah, but before that, you've been the coordinator for Greater Accra.
Yes, I have been.
Okay.
I was the coordinator for almost 9 years.
Okay.
For Accra.
All right. So we'll talk about the big dream for this office, how you want to transform things, how we can measure what you're doing. But quite a number of cases recorded last year. I'm not sure if it's the numbers that are going up or if perhaps it's the media's attention, the fact that we talked about it. That's why it sounded like we recorded quite a number of cases. How does it look like in terms of the statistics that you have?
In terms of statistics, we have a lot of people reporting these days because there are a lot of awareness that are being created all over through the media and through police public education. So people are becoming aware. Times gone by, even before the Domestic Violence Act was passed by Parliament, you couldn't go to the police station and report issues of domestic violence. Should you go to the police and say, oh, you didn't even have the courage to go and tell the police that my father has defiled me or my mother has beaten me up. So with the passage of the Domestic Violence Act and then with media publications and public education, people are now aware that even though there are still challenges, people are aware that it's an offense for them to report, but then they report and they also want to frustrate the police in the prosecution of cases.
So typically, how does a case begin and how do we close the chapter?
Okay, now the process is this. Anybody can, under the Domestic Violence Act, anybody can report a domestic violence offense. So you don't need to be a family member. You can be a passerby. If you are a witness to it, you can report, or you have information, you can report. A victim can also report. A next friend of a child can also report offense. So when the police receives a complaint, it depends on what type of complaint is received. Some you need medical examination. So let me take defilement, which is now the issue. So if a case of defilement is reported, if it's an immediate offense that has been committed, sometimes you have to move in quickly because then the perpetrator might run away. If it's something that was reported late, then we write statement, take your statement, take you to the hospital or give you a medical form to go to the hospital, collect medical evidence, collect some other evidence that is needed for prosecution. And then we will go in to arrest the perpetrator, and then the perpetrator comes to the police station. We bring the person to the police station, the suspect. We take statement, caution statement. We don't charge the person at that time. During initial investigation, it's always caution statement. So we take caution statement from the person, and then from there, but in between taking statement, getting medical form, we take the person, the victim, through counseling, because the person is traumatized. So we involve, if it's a child and the parents are not around, and deferment is always has to do with a child below 16 years. We engage the social welfare. If the parents are not around, we engage social welfare to stand in for the parents. Then when we are able to gather enough evidence, it is then that we go to court. Now, if we are unable to finish investigations within 48 hours, then we take the person to court for the person to be remanded into police custody or prison custody, depending on what the court decides, and then we'll continue with the investigations. So when we are done and there is enough evidence to show that the suspect committed the offense, then we formally then charge the person with defilement, and then the person is arraigned before court.
Okay, and then from that process onwards, that's typically not in your hands.
No.
Okay.
No. But once we are done with the investigation, then it goes into the court processes and all that.
How long does it take to investigate?
It's difficult to give timeline. There are some investigations that I have conducted that within 2 days, you can get all your evidence and go to court. That's when you are very lucky. That's when the offense was just committed and instantly the person was arrested and then it was brought to the attention of the police. But where it takes a while before the victim reports the case, it can take a long time. Even in advanced countries, it would take, there are cases that take like 30 years, 20 years, they are unable to gather evidence. So it depends. Sometimes within a day you can gather your evidence. But most of the time it goes beyond 2 days, 3 days, 1 week.
So typically in the defilement case, what kind of evidence are you looking at?
I don't want to put everything on, you know, because then I might compromise the situation. But we normally would look for medical form, medical reports, and then some other evidence I cannot talk about. But what we encourage victims of defilement to do is, and rape victim, is never to have a bath. As soon as you are defiled or you are raped, please don't have a bath. We understand and appreciate the fact that you are traumatized and you want to get the dirt off your body. We can imagine what you'll be going through, but it is in your own interest and in the interest of justice for you not to wash down, because when you wash down, you are washing away the evidence that will be needed, the evidence that we need from the doctor, because when you go, the doctor will have to examine you and pick some evidence from your body and write a report on that, and that would enhance our prosecution in court.
I wonder if you've heard some people say that medical form that you give to the victim right there and then, then you say go to the hospital. If we could have like an in-house, maybe like a very either a doctor on standby for that referral, because the person has already gone through a lot, and to say take this form and go to the hospital.
Yes,
so it's easy for the person to change their mind. They say I won't go again.
Yes, and that is why the police have started with this one-stop shop project, where you have a doctor, you have a nurse, you have a social welfare officer, you have a counselor and everything in one building. It's a project that we started in at the police headquarters. Now we are yet to finish it. Once we are done with that, then we will start in the other regions, but we have to finish what we have in Accra first before we can start going. So it is something that we have thought about it, because not just going to the hospital, it's about even going there and starting your story again. Because when the victim comes to us, she will have to narrate her story. Then she goes to the doctor, and the medical doctor will have to listen to her story. And not just that, when she goes, she has to join the normal line, you know, of patients who want to see the doctor. So if we can have our own in-house doctors within the police station, where the doctor would examine the person and the person wouldn't have to sit and wait for a long time, you know, wanting to go and have a bath, and then she has to wait with all the dirt on her body. So it is something that it's on the drawing board. We've started it, and what we need is funding to complete it.
So when you're referred to the hospital, you're joining the queue like any other normal patients?
Yes, and the normal section, but there are some doctors, we have collaboration with some doctors in Kwalebu, where you go that they try to pick you out. We refer you to the social welfare Kwalebu or police hospital.
Okay.
When you, especially with the police hospital, when you go, we have a social welfare desk, the office there. We refer you directly to the social welfare, so they take it upon themselves. So you don't join the queue, but it's not the norm. It's not what is done everywhere. Any other place where we don't have such, you know, collaborations, then you have to join the main queue. So these are some of the things that we are looking at as to see how best we can work at it, so that when a victim of domestic violence works in, especially defilement, rape, they are attended to immediately, and then they can move on.
So how far are you? Is it fair to refer to what you're doing in Accra as a pilot project, and how far in the processes? Where are you exactly in terms of getting the doctor, getting the social welfare person right at the police station? Yes.
What we have now, when it comes to, for doctors, we don't even have it at the national level. A doctor, we don't have it. It's a project that we started with. We need a structure first, because currently our offices cannot accommodate a mini clinic. So we need a structure first. That's why we started with a structure at the police headquarters. And it's been roofed, but there are lots more to be done.
Okay.
So when we are done with that, because it's capital intensive, so when we are done with that, then we'll move to the regions. If it is possible, we are looking at, the administration is looking at a lot of, you know, other avenues. If it is possible for us to start it simultaneously, like Kumasi, we can start that same project across the country, like Ashanti, Brunga Harfo, Northern, why not? We'll start it at the same time. But if it will be difficult because of funding, then we'll take one region after the other.
Okay. So as it exists today, if you were to go to a police station to report an incident of domestic violence, either defilement or rape, is there a special, like a DOVVSU officer designated for complaints like that, or there isn't anything like that?
We deal with domestic violence issues, including sexual offenses. So when you walk to the police station, you go to the counter, and then you tell the personnel at the counter that this is what has happened to me. The police officer at the counter takes your initial complaint and writes it in our station diary, and then refers the case to, the case is sent to the chief inspector, who will then assign an investigator. Of course, we have a duty roster, so we know who is on duty at this particular time. So the station officer will write on it and assign it to a particular investigator. So we don't have a particular investigator for rape and defilement. Okay. They are all investigators, so they all take up the cases. So if, let's say, Constable A is on duty and you report rape case, now he would take.
Would it help, do you think, if we had specialized people?
We are specialized. We are trained.
All of you?
Yes, we are trained. So it's a continuous training, because when you train the person, you give the person the initial training, you have to retrain and retrain. So we do in-service training, and sometimes too we have other NGOs coming in to train us as to how to handle victims of domestic violence, and then we have other professional counselors also coming in to train DOVVSU personnel to at least give us the basics as to how to handle. We might not be experts when it comes to being, we might not be counselors. Some have that background, but some don't. So, but we all need it. We need at least a basis as to how to handle a victim, because a person is traumatized, especially with kids. It's so difficult taking statements from kids. It's so difficult because, one, their trust has been broken, they have been abused by an adult, and that they are now being interviewed by an adult. So they are confused. How can they trust you? So before you even interview a child, you have to think and act like a child. So there are times that if I have to interview a child, I have to clear my decks of everything that if the child destroys, it will not be the best. Because when the child comes, anytime she touches something or he touches something, I say, don't do it, I'm scaring the child again. So what I do is that I clear my table and put crayons, toys, and drawing papers and other things on the table. So then as soon as the person comes in, I start warming up to the person gradually, you know, then the person starts opening up to you. the person will start with drawings, and they communicate through drawings as well. So when they draw anything they do, you ask them, what is this? They will tell you what it is. Then when they find you as a friend, that is where they begin to, so that particular day you might not even have the opportunity, or it will not be proper for you to even interview the child. So you need to build that rapport with the child. Let the child see you as a friend that she can confide in you, or he can confide in you, before maybe at a later date when you meet you can take statement from the child.
It's good you said he.
Yes.
So because the other question is, how often do we have boys either defiled or cases reported?
For boys, we don't, it's not as high as female. Females are mostly defiled, and it will amaze you that sometimes 6 months old, 1 year old are defiled, and they come to you. And for instance, if a year-old or 2-year-old child is defiled, it's so difficult to get statement from the person. There are some children that can really talk at that age, that are well developed, such that they can communicate with you very well and express themselves very well. So when you have such children, it becomes much more easier to take statement from them. But there are some children, it's so difficult because of probably the way they've been trained at home, that, you know, they've been intimidated by their parents unknowingly. So it becomes difficult. That's why in this modern times, we encourage parents to train their children to be vocal, not in a rude way, but, you know, to be assertive, to know what, not, you know, in our culture section, is like when a child is not supposed to talk when an adult is talking, a child is not supposed to do this. We have a lot of boundaries that we've set for our children.
Even with the private parts, we have, they are not supposed to call it as they are.
Exactly.
But we give different names to it. We're hiding certain things from them.
Exactly. So the child becomes timid. If you train your child to become timid, she or he cannot say no to an abuser. A child that is trained not to be timid can at least, you know, be assertive. And even because of her age and her strength, she's unable to overcome the suspects or the perpetrator. At least right after the incident, she will report to you. And we should learn to trust our children, that whatever they tell us, you know, it is in good faith. And then we can investigate. If you find out that, oh, what she's telling you is the truth, you can draw the police attention.
Let's talk about, I wanted us to talk about domestic violence also in general, because we heard that the men are also reporting.
Yes,
a lot these days.
Men are reporting, but, you know, it still doesn't take away the fact that women are more abused. Women are more abused than men. You have a few of them coming in to report genuine cases of abuse from women, but mostly it's normally verbal abuse. Once a while you have assault, but mostly it's emotional or verbal abuse.
Can that build a strong case, emotional or verbal abuse?
Yes, it is. Under the Domestic Violence Act, we have offenses like emotional abuse, verbal abuse, psychological abuse, and sexual abuse, and economic abuse. So we have a lot of them. So verbal abuse, emotional abuse, but they're under the domestic violence. These are all misdemeanors. So the punishment is between, when you're convicted, your sentence is between maybe 500 penalty units, not more than 500 penalty units, and not more than 2 years. So, but if it's aggravated, then we'll go under the Criminal Offences Act at 29, and then prefer the necessary charges.
We've heard that sometimes when the men come, some of your officers laugh at them because it's laughable that a man is reporting that the wife is abusing him.
Honestly, it is not true. I have never heard this complaint before, because there are men also in DOVVSU. There are men who are investigators, who have been trained. So I'm wondering how you will laugh at your fellow man.
But you've heard this, you've heard people say this.
No, people think that when they come to DOVVSU, they will be laughed at. I have had instances when people tell me, madam, you say I should come and report. When I get there, you see me with my macho, won't you laugh at me? Then I said, no, we are not going to laugh at you. People come, very responsible men in society come, and you can see that they are really traumatized. They are really, really being traumatized by their wives. So we encourage the men out there, please come to DOVVSU, because we are not going to laugh at you. It is a crime. A crime is a crime. It doesn't matter whether the victim is a man or a woman or a disabled or a child. A crime is a crime, and it has no color.
What would men typically complain about?
Verbal abuse,
okay,
and emotional abuse. You know, my wife has been insulting me. My wife goes out, I don't know where she goes. She comes in whatever time she wants to. She doesn't do a house chores like cleaning up, you know. And so this basically it's emotional.
Okay, but that's also a matter that can be resolved by DOVVSU.
DOVVSU does not resolve matters. The law allows parties to a case to resolve the matters if it's a misdemeanor. So what we can do is that when you report the case to us and it's a misdemeanor and you want to settle, there are options. Now the complainant can decide to bring a withdrawal letter and say that, oh, Mami police, Papa police, I have settled my matter with my husband, so I want to withdraw the case. We will either take further statement from you or ask you to bring a written letter, and then we'll put it on file. And then we do further investigations to be very sure that it is not pressure from your family members or from the man's family or from friends. That is why you've decided to bring the withdrawal letter. If it's a genuine withdrawal, you are genuinely withdrawing it because you've taken a lot of things into consideration. Your husband has apologized or your partner has apologized, and based on that you want to give the marriage a second chance, then we will close the docket. Now, when we close the docket, we will tell you that the fact that we've closed the docket doesn't mean that it's the end of the case. Anytime your partner does another or the same thing, the same act that constitutes an offense, come back to us. We will reopen the same docket and continue with the investigation. The other thing is that the police will finish with the investigations, especially when we are not sure of the motive for withdrawing. We are not convinced. Sometimes we can see pressure. So it's not like you are willing to let the case go. You've resolved it genuinely, fairly, but it's because you are being put under pressure or some other reason. We send the case to court. Now, when we take the case to court, the court can decide on its own that they will refer the matter, if it's a misdemeanor, it is not aggravated, that the court on its own can decide that we will refer the matter to the ADR, so that they use the ADR method to resolve dispute. Exactly, resolution. The Domestic Violence Act makes provisions for that. So then the court will refer the matter to ADR. However, if the complainant in the case can also ask the court that, okay, I want my matter to be referred to the ADR, and then the court will comply. So yes, we can, but the police cannot take it upon itself to say that complainant sit here, suspect sit here, I am going to sit in and resolve the matter. No, we cannot do that.
It's interesting. It's 101 with the director of DOVVSU, and we're trying to understand how it works, so that if we're making a move to DOVVSU, we would know what we would need and how the process. At least you need to be able to predict the process, so you can make the decision as to whether or not you want to go.
Definitely. Yeah. But even if you don't know the procedure, I encourage people to report, because it's an offense. And it's happened to you. You keep quiet, it will happen to somebody else in a different form. Maybe you were fortunate not to have died. Some people are raped and defiled and they are killed. So you are alive. You need to save somebody by reporting. And if you report and you are being frustrated by the processes, I always encourage people to voice it out. Go to the senior officer there. Probably you have an encounter with the investigator on the ground, and the investigator might be misconducting himself or might not be communicating with you well. There are instances that it doesn't border on professional misconduct per se, but probably it's miscommunication.
Okay.
So when you encounter such things, because you don't understand our processes, sometimes you tend to conclude, you know, in a negative way. So anytime you have any of these misfeelings, please go to the senior officer, ask to be sent to the senior officer, the station officer, if she or he is not available. Talk to the district commander, the divisional commander, or we're trying to even...
Are they open like that? Because sometimes it's almost as if the person who you're not comfortable with is the person you're going to ask for the referral.
No, you can ask him. If it's proving difficult, you can talk to any investigator around and tell them that you want to see the station officer. And then, or you can look for the station officer's office, ask for direction to the station officer. Oh, please, where's your station officer's office? And then they will direct you. You go there and then you lodge your complaint.
Have you realized that these days people seem to be more comfortable either calling a radio station or television station and trying to tell their stories to reporters?
Yes, I have noticed. And some of them, that not to take away the fact that some of them are true. Some too try to use the media to promote their own hidden agenda. Some of the cases, in my situation, for instance, when I was in Accra region, most of the cases that was on air were not true.
Really?
Yes. From my experience. That is why I always encourage the media that please, when you have these cases, people coming to tell you that they've been raped, they've been defiled, please refer to us first and then follow us for information.
There was a case at Kaneshi where the woman said she was being put under a lot of pressure from family members, but even that she could deal with. But the investigator, the person who was investigating, was also beginning to tell her that take the money and let's kill this case.
Okay, I don't know whether it's the same case that was aired by, it was done by, is it Maxwell or somebody?
Maxwell Obama. Yes, I think Maxwell did a similar
I don't know whether it's the same thing. But then later on, I heard that news. If it's the same thing we're talking about, I saw that news, I watched the news, and then I called the coordinator there to find out what was going on. So she decided to check, because she had then reported back to duty. She was away for a while, so she had then reported back to duty. And then when we checked, the case was in court. So that's what I'm saying, that some of the
So when it is in courts, you have nothing to do with it then?
Exactly, because if, let's even say, for the sake of argument, that you have an unprofessional police person who wants to withdraw the case, there's no way the person can withdraw. If the person comes to you and says that, oh, give me whatever amount of money and I will kill the, how is the person going to do it? Because the case is already in court.
When it's in court, can you write to withdraw?
It depends. In terms of the, in terms of the complainant, or
yes.
The complainant can go to court. That's what I'm saying, is if it's misdemeanor and it's not aggravated, you know, misdemeanor, then the complainant can rise up, not necessarily write to court, go to court, and when the case is called, the complainant can inform the court that, oh, my lord, because of ABCD, I would like to withdraw the case, and then the court will look at it. The court has that jurisdiction and will decide that, okay, I'm striking out the case, or you know,
So I'm following from what you said, for the sake of arguments. If the investigator knows the processes so well, they certainly can influence the complainants, knowing that there's a route that you can take to withdraw the case.
If the yes, it is possible that an investigator can influence the complainant. But you see, if the complainant herself decide not to, there's nothing that the investigator can do, because it's completely out of the investigator's hand to say that, oh, I am cancelling the case, or I want to, you know, dilly-dally and mess up the case. The case is now in court. The only way to dispense with the case is to the court's decision. Maybe the court, you come in and the court will say, okay, because you've come in and it's misdemeanor, maybe, okay, we decide to close the docket.
But the prosecutor in this case is also a police officer?
Sometimes.
Okay.
Because we do prosecution on behalf of AG. So there are cases that the AG can decide to come in and prosecute or they will leave it to the police. But when it comes to rape, it's always prosecuted by the AG.
Okay.
It's the AG that prosecutes rape because it's done at the High Court, and the police prosecutors don't prosecute at the High Court.
So if I reported my husband for abuse and he's locked up, I have 2 children, and say I can't single-handedly take care of them, what can DOVVSU do to help?
Okay, so these are some of the gaps. These are some of the gaps in terms of, so that is why it's difficult for people to report their spouses, especially when their spouses are the breadwinner, because they're like, if I report my partner and then my partner is jailed, where am I going to get the money from and other things? So that is basically the gap. But of course, once the person is in cells, if the person has means of economic means, maybe whilst he's in cells, he's running a business and the business is yielding income, the court can make orders for the children. So it is not that it's not that bad.
Okay.
There's
a way out.
There's a way out.
There's a way out.
There's
sometimes.
a way out. Yes.
Okay. So what if I love my partner so much and I don't want to lose him, even though he's hurting me?
Okay, we take you through counseling. We take you through, that's where counseling is very crucial. We take you through counseling and bring you home to understand a lot of issues. The counselors will not make the decisions for you, but they counsel you to appreciate your condition, and they aid you in a way to make your personal decision. So we'll take you through counseling for you to appreciate the fact that there are people, beautiful women, I know of at least 2 people. One is blind now in one eye and one is maimed, all because of domestic violence. They got married, they went into the marriage with 2 eyes, they could see clearly, they were not born blind, they didn't have an accident, you know, which can happen to anybody. They went into marriage, they married somebody they said they love and they also love them. And they came out of the marriage blinded in one eye. So domestic violence issue is not a child's
Tell me
play.
those 2 got justice.
That's the problem. One never reported the case. One never reported. The other who reported the case, the husband was jailed. But the one who never reported the case, it was years after that it was brought to my attention. She came to me and I said, oh, let's start the process. It's not too late. She went and she never came back. We tried her numbers. We tried locating her. She said, no, it's okay. She's moved on with her life. So it's a huge issue, because sometimes people say, because of religious background, you know, I'm a Christian, so I leave it to God. I have a child with the person, so I don't want the child to grow up and say that I have imprisoned the father. So people have various reasons why they refuse to you know, report to the police. But now what we have other processes that we need to use more on the side of the police to ensure that even if the witnesses are not forthcoming, we can subpoena them, you know, and then take it from there. And when you are served with a subpoena and you refuse to honor it, go to court, then there are offenses under the Criminal Offences Act. That
do we know if some of these people we send to jail for domestic violence? Yes. Do we know if they are truly reformed? Do we try to track how we've been able to reform them after sending them to prison?
The reform is not us. It's not the police.
That's our prisons in general.
Exactly. Okay. So it's up to the prisons.
Because I'm looking at somebody either being jailed or being fined. There's a little separation, and the person coming back and saying that I am sorry for what I did to you.
Oh, sometimes
I've gone to prison and I've learned my lesson. I want to come back to you.
Well, we've not had that incident. I don't know of such incident, but even in our interaction with some of the suspects, some of them show remorse at the police station.
And they mean it?
Oh yes, oh yes, and they go and you never hear of their cases being reported anywhere.
Okay.
Some show genuine remorse. I remember there was one case that I handled. The man beat up the wife. So the wife came to the police station very traumatized with bruises and all that, and he was threatened. He threw the woman's properties out,
Okay.
clothing and all that. So, and it was late. Fortunately for us, the woman came straight to the police station. So I instructed that they should go and arrest the man. So we took, before we earlier on had taken statement from the victim and gotten medical report. Then the man came. So we needed the woman to go back home. And we couldn't put the two of them in the house. So we detained the man overnight.
So the woman could take care of the house, like be in the house?
Yes, be in the house. So the following morning, the man was brought. I brought the man out, and then we started having a conversation. And he was very angry. And I was like, why? He said, madam, the cells you put me in, no, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, really? So why? He said, no, it's not good at all. He was really traumatized being in cells. I said, oh, you were only in a room that was locked up because you committed an offense. So can you imagine what your wife went through for no offense, you beating her up and embarrassing her in public and all that? Then he sat down quiet and was like, madam, you are right too. In fact, I was very wrong. And you know, since then, it just dawned on him that for him to be in a room confined with others was trauma for him. So it then dawns on him like, okay, I can imagine what my wife went through. So for that couple, afterwards, the woman kept on coming to the police station just to say hello to us and all that, and she never reported. She said the man has changed completely. Okay. So there are
there surprise home visits? Is it part of your strategy?
Especially with kids. But we do social welfare. Okay. We do social welfare. Okay. We go with them. We know your location. We visit you. We visit them at schools, you know, to find out how they are doing, or at home to pick a few things. So we do it. Okay.
Before we wrap up, let's talk about sentences. We've heard sometimes that they're not punitive enough. That's why we get people even repeating the offense. What do you think?
You know, to some extent I disagree, because murder cases, for instance, the punishment is a capital punishment, and still people still kill. People still murder people. So no matter how punitive punishments are, we will still have people who commit crime. We can't have a crime-free society. There will always be crime. What we can do is to find ways and means to reduce crime statistics. But we cannot eliminate crime totally. It is not possible.
There's another suggestion of the offenders register, so that if you are either employing someone, or if you want to go into a relationship with someone, you can make reference to that register, which will tell you the history of the person before you commit.
Oh, we have, for instance, if we have what we call the police reports. If you want to, criminal reports, if you want a report from the police CID, from the police, you go to the CID. For instance, we have people who are who want to employ personnel, people to their various companies and organizations. They ask for police reports. Okay. So if you are, for instance, Joy FM, you are employing, or you want to employ somebody, you can write to the police. It comes at a fee, and then they will tell you whether the person has a criminal record or not. So that thing is there. Whoever is sent to jail, your statistics is captured.
But if I'm about to marry someone, can I also write to the police and find out the background of the person, the criminal background of the person that I'm about to marry?
Well, we've not had that before, but maybe we can, you never know. We've not had somebody coming to us saying that I want to marry A, so people normally do private investigators, especially in developed countries, okay? In Ghana, I know there are some private investigators, so people want to hire them and to track the person's background and all that. But sometimes too, as a person you own, you should be able to pick up a few things. You should know when you are going to marry. There should be some indicators somewhere along.
But when my sons are old enough, I would come to the police to find out.
You are most welcome.
I think just before we go, I'm not sure if you have a lot of information to share with us on this domestic violence support fund. Yeah.
Well, I don't have much information on it now, but I know that the fund is in place. The board has been constituted, and that there's one lady that had applied to the fund for support. So the fund is in place. As to how much is in the fund, I am not privy to it now.
So hopefully when we talk again sometime.
Yes.
Yeah. But what's that big plan of yours now that you're in charge of the domestic violence unit of the Ghana Police Service?
Okay. My top priority, one of my top priority is capacity building for the personnel.
Okay.
Because I believe in professionalism. If we go out soliciting for help from the public, we need to we need to encourage. We need to make them aware that we are working. We need to put up a professional behavior in terms of how we handle cases. So capacity building in terms of professionalism is key on the agenda, and we're trying to put up programs throughout the year across the country for DOVVSU personnel.
Okay.
We're also looking at the situation where to encourage crime reporting. We want to encourage the public to report domestic violence cases. We are also looking at this one-stop shop project where we will have doctors and other professionals in there to help enhance the job and enhance service delivery to the victims. So we have a lot of things, mainly public education, targeting the youth as well. Because you know, these days with gang rape and all that, we need to target the youth, because most of them are into these things because of peer pressure, or they think it's fun. So we need to do public education. So public education, capacity building, encouraging crime reporting is very key.
When you mention the youth and the fun bit, I just remember the Kumasi video that went viral. Now it's in courts.
Yes.
So once the case is in court, you have nothing to do with it, essentially.
It depends. If we have finished with the investigations, if we have not finished with investigation, then it means that we still will have to go on with gathering evidence. But if we finish with everything, then it is in court. Then it's the police, and then the prosecutor, and then the court. But
is there very good coordination or enough support coming from the judiciary? Because after you do your work, it's the judge, who brings finality to whatever it is that you've investigated for so long. Is there enough coordination, enough support
there is
coming
coordination. From the yes, there is coordination with the judiciary. What is going to court is about evidence. So if you go to court and your evidence is weak, the judge can do nothing about it. But if you go to court and you have strong evidence and you put it out there, then the court will have no other choice but to convict the person. If for whatever reason you think that you have good evidence and the court gave sentence that you think wasn't right, you can always appeal.
Are the women, the female judges, in terms of domestic issues, domestic abuse, are they better than the male judges?
They're all good. They're all good. They're all good.
Okay, I'm not
because there are men. We have men who champion the cause of domestic violence, who champion these things. So it's not just women who are at the forefront. There are some men that are very, very supportive when it comes to domestic violence.
So prominent people, judges and lawyers, do we also get domestic abuse cases coming from that area? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I have had at least one or two. Yes, I do. Yes.
Okay. Finally, have you left Accra better off?
Oh yes, there's always room for improvement. So in police service, you build on what your predecessor did. I did what I could do at that time and left it off, so somebody would then continue, and there's always room for improvement.
Yeah. So just before we go, and I didn't tell you this before, is there a certain number that that you can readily give us that people can make reference to, like if people want to call? Otherwise, I can take this off air. And then I can mention it
because we want to get a platform. We want to create a platform where people can easily report cases of abuse. It's also one of the vision that I have for the unit to get. We have some lines. We need to reactivate them, but these are landlines. But we want to create a platform like maybe a WhatsApp where you can WhatsApp complaint, and then we'll trace you to your house and then take it from there.
Is there a Facebook page? Are you visible on social media?
No, we are. It's also on the drawing board. It's something that we have considered. We sat down, we had a discussion on it as to create Facebook and then have an interaction. So it's part of the platform that we intend to create so that we can have the public can have easy access to us.
Can we have interactions every year? Make a commitment so that we can be measuring. We can measure how far, with all the things that you've outlined.
Okay, interaction with the media.
Yes, with me.
We are always available. DOVVSU is always available.
Okay,
DOVVSU is always available.
When we come knocking and you don't open, I'll come and say it on the show.
Don't worry, we are always available. We need your support. We have the administration. We have vision. But the problem is it comes back to funding and logistics. Because imagine you get a call midnight, maybe 10 p.m. and that somebody is being abused. You need a vehicle to move. So if you don't have the vehicle, what do you do?
Yeah.
And then when you are able to rescue the victim, you need to place the victim in a shelter. And we don't have shelter for abused women. So then there's also another issue. So you have the ideas, you know where where you want to go, but the means to get you there is also the issue.
Yeah.
So
we appreciate the challenges, and I think that we appreciate the work that you do as well. We kind of bash police people in general, but there's a lot of work that you're also doing. But we wish you well. Congratulations on this position.
Thank you.
And we wish you
thank you.
The very best.
Thank you very much.
All right. So that's the Director of DOVVSU, which is the Domestic Violence Unit of the Ghana Police Service, Chief Superintendent Owusu Treme. She's Director in Charge.